I'm trying this again. I crashed my computer on the last attempt. Yes, this is a day late. I apologize. You don't care why it was late, but it definitely was. This is going to go until July 2nd, but I'll actually just go out a couple extra days just in case something like this happens again. If you don't already know, I'm doing ancient sidereal astrology. That means that I am going to be looking at the planets in the actual constellations that they're in. Not only that, I'm also going to be using the original meanings of these planets and constellations. I'm going back as far as we have any type of documentation for these. So if they don't sound familiar to you, if you've never heard these before, that's because you're probably using the astrological associations created in Greece about 2,000 years ago, and they are completely based on the element modality system and the planetary rulership system, which the Greeks just made up. And I will put a little link up here so you can see what I'm talking about if you're not already familiar. We are primarily going to be looking at the moon. Fun fact, the Sumerians in particular believed that the moon was essentially the celestial shepherd, the glory of heaven, the god of the moon, Nana. And the moon is listed first in oh so many documents that we have from Mesopotamia. So this is what we are going to be primarily focused on. Now the moon, as you will see here, I'm going to go ahead hour by hour, just wait, no, center. Yeah, okay. So what you will see here is that the moon, as the hours progress, especially here through the 26th, the moon is moving very quickly compared to the sun. So if you are using a horoscope based on solar transits, it's not very exciting. The moon will tell you what's going on moment to moment. No kidding. If you are really dorky and you really want to see, if you really care, you can track the moon and find out everything that's going on with you on a moment to moment basis. Of course, you're going to need to know your date and time of birth and the location that you were born also. With that in mind, just so you know, all of this that I'm about to tell you is a very general forecast. We cannot know exactly how these things are going to affect you without looking at your individual natal chart. So please take that into consideration. If you would like me to look at your natal chart for you, my contact information will be in the video description. So here on the 29th, the moon is going to be right here between Virgo and Libra. Technically, this is already Libra energy. Originally, this was the claws of the scorpion. Now, the best way I like to explain what Libra is all about is looking at it in relation to the scorpion, because originally this entire constellation was one giant scorpion. This right here were the claws of the scorpion. Eventually, they became scales, and for some reason, they were later associated with balance, but it's not really about balance. This was all about financial transactions. The scales and the claws of the scorpion were both emblems of merchants and people in business and in the marketplace. And if you think about it, what are scorpion claws used for? You don't have any scorpions, you may or may not know that they are used to pin down prey and stuff it into your face. And that's basically what the marketplace is all about. It's about going to the market to either buy your food or to sell your wares so that you can get some money to buy your food in the same marketplace. And this right here is all about the marketplace. This is why this is such a social constellation. It has nothing to do with some element modality, anything at all. This is literally just where we all go to interact. If you think about it, a few hundred years ago, your community is all you have. If you don't have access to the internet, which a lot of places still don't, your human interaction, the way you get food is by literally walking into town and making transactions, doing some deals, doing that stuff, and then getting some food. So your marketplace, your neighbors, your community, your tribe, the people that you're interacting with on a daily basis are all going to be right in your immediate environment. So this is very tribal. However, now, obviously, we have access to the whole world. So who your tribe or community or whoever that is for you, that's up to you. And you live in a wonderful time in human history where you get to decide who you want to spend your time with and hang out with. I am very grateful, by the way, that you're spending some of that time with me right now. Yes, technically, when we're dealing with other people, it is important that we remain civil. We don't necessarily have to avoid conflict, but it is important that we abide by some social standards, and all of that is going to be wrapped up in here. I do think that was distorted over time with the whole balance thing. And so a lot of people with strong Libra energy, they have been told that they're non-confrontational and they don't want to cause problems. Most people are non-confrontational. That's really not that strange, but it's really not about that. It's really just more about relationships and getting along so that we can live in a community and be a cohesive group and essentially all feed ourselves so that we don't starve. So right now, the moon is moving into this area. This means that social interaction is going to take some additional priority during this time. Any social interaction that you have should be beneficial. Obviously, again, you got to look at your own chart in relation to what's going on here to know how this is going to affect you in particular. If you are an entrepreneur in particular, or you are a business person, you do a lot of networking, you work with the community, you are in politics, any of that stuff will be favorable during this time period. And it looks like it's going to go, let's see, it's going to run us into probably the 30th, like throughout the 30th. That's when it's going to be the strongest. There's overlap between all of these, so you will feel some of those. So we're going to go through Virgo, and this goes back to the 25th. But while the moon's in Virgo, anything to do with finances or physical health and essentially surviving here in the material world is going to be beneficial. So this is a great time to try to get out of debt, to start an exercise regimen, to clean up your diet, any of these things that would essentially give you a leg up when it comes to surviving here, to healing your body, healing your finances. That is going to be beneficial. Are you more likely to want to stay home during this time period? Probably, generally speaking. Again, depends on your individual natal chart. But when we start to get into this Libra energy, it now becomes a better time to maybe make some financial transactions, actually make some bigger purchases. Again, general. Also, you may find that you want to get out more, you want to talk to more people, you want to make some phone calls or socialize. If you've been putting off emailing people, calling people, doing that if you're a natural introvert, this is a good time to maybe push yourself a little bit so you can get some of that done. Into the 30th, we're already feeling this Scorpio energy. In particular, we will have this conjunction with Antares here on the 1st. Okay, so how long do we have? We're going to transit over here. I'm just going to run this through you. We do touch kind of the lower leg here of Ophiuchus on the 2nd. I'm going to back up and tell you about Scorpio in just 1 second. But we are going to then go into Sagittarius midway through Egyptian Standard Time, midway through the day on the 2nd into Sagittarius. But before I tell you about that, let me see how far is it going to go. All the way into, yeah, it's running us into midday, and well, throughout the 4th, we'll say. Okay, so let's back up. By the way, don't know, this program's called Stellarium. You can download it for free at stellarium.org. I highly recommend that you do that, even if you are not an astrologer or an astronomer. It is amazing to tune into the actual placement of where these things are. So when you go out at night, if you go out at night, hopefully, and you are blessed to live in an area of the world where you can actually see the sky and the stars at night, you actually know what you're looking at, or we'll start you on the journey of learning what you're looking at. And this is cool too. If you don't already know, I probably never showed you. I could probably do like tutorials on this, I guess, if anybody cares. If you care, if that sounds cool, you guys are interested, let me know and I'll make some tutorial videos on this. But you can set this up so that it gives you the moonrise, moonset. That's very important. At least I think it's very important. Of some of these, it gives you a lot of information. Oh, there's so much information. Probably don't need all the information. You can pick and choose what you get to look at, but it's definitely really cool. So I would check it out. Back to Scorpio. If you are not aware, the Mesopotamian people loved Scorpion men and Scorpion people. They were guardians. They were protectors. They were fierce little warriors, but they were not running around the desert trying to, Scorpions in general, they didn't look at them like some nasty little things that were going to run around and sting you. They were protective, namely. They were used in a lot of magical rituals and spells and incantations. So they do have a lot of magical power in here, a lot of manifestation power in particular. We do have a lot of raw maternal energy in here, very protective maternal energy in here. Scorpions are phenomenal mothers. Scorpions, if you don't know, are one of the only, if not the only arachnid. You should probably check to see if they're the only one. I think they are. The only arachnid that gives birth to live young, and they are ferocious mothers. Do not want to mess with anybody with strong Scorpio, especially any females out there with children and with strong Scorpio. That is a serious situation. So be careful. But while the moon's here, it's activating this energy. It's bringing it to life. As a matter of fact, if you go back and read the Babylonian omens, anything being in the halo of the moon basically just turned it on. That was what woke everything up. Again, the moon was extremely important in Mesopotamian astrology and astronomy. But something in particular happens on, see, we're already going to be feeling it on the 30th, but it will be conjunct with Antares at 11 a.m. Egyptian Standard Time on the 1st. This is important because Antares was the Lycae star, and Lycae was known as the lamenting goddess, and she was beseeched to appease angry deities. She was associated with funerals and death and that type of thing, but She was also prayed to for success, and just generally, she was a good, benevolent deed. What happens though, when the moon is conjunct with Antares, or the Lisi star, is that this is turning on our empathic centers, but in a much less peaceful way. This can open us up to some really intense empathic connections with people. It just can be really emotional and really intense. Again, it's going to depend on your personal natal chart, how this impacts you, but it could be very intense. Now, this happens every month. So every month we have, on a global scale, the potential for some really intense interactions between countries. That's always a possibility. Sometimes hostilities run higher. Sometimes there are some amazing peacemaking experiences that can take place too. It's really just going to depend on the individual natal charts of some very particular countries. So you guys can figure out what that is. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the world on the 1st. Generally speaking though, I might try to lay low. If you do any type of creative work, I would maybe take this time to stay home, indulge in some creative projects, not necessarily go out and do a whole lot. Although you can, it is a very adventurous energy throughout Scorpio. It's very nomadic. There's a lot of travel wound up in there. So if you are traveling, it probably will be good. But if you just have a choice, you're already very emotional, or you have some like intense relationship stuff that you're dealing with, I would just maybe try to lay low during that time period. We get into the 2nd, into the 3rd, the moon is going to enter Sagittarius this entire time, and I'll talk more about this next week. But again, just in case I'm late, Sagittarius is the constellation of success. This is material world success, spiritual success, any way you slice it, it is success. This is strong career energy, but any spiritual work you're doing, phenomenal. By the way, back here, right on the middle of the day on the 2nd, the moon is traversing the actual center of the galaxy, and everyone's intuition will be increased during this time. It doesn't matter what's going on in your chart. Everybody gets this. On the 27th, we are approaching this conjunction between the Sun and Mercury. You're going to be feeling that onto the 29th. It is pretty exact on the 30th, on the 1st, so pretty much most of the week. This is going to improve any type of learning, any type of pursuing any type of intellectual interest. So go down your rabbit holes, do your research. You will retain much more information and it will be fun. This conjunction here between Venus and Mars is, we already talked about it, very sensitive, very emotionally sensitive, physically sensitive, empathically sensitive. This is increasing all of this energy during this time. And what's going to happen next week, not this week, Mars will be conjunct with Regulus, and Venus is going to be entering Leo right at the same time. Very precarious, hopefully not perilous. This will be interesting to see what happens in the world. If you have strong Leo in your chart, this is going to really impact you. So we will talk about that next week. I have to take my daughter to soccer practice. I forgot about it, so I should definitely go and do that. Is that everything? Yeah, it's pretty much everything. We'll talk about the rest of the stuff next week. Okay, so with that, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification icon so you can get this video, the next video like this next time, and I will see you then.